Right, can I just make an open comment, right? One, Peter never ever comes to my defense, so that's a first, right?
Right.
And secondly, I had two of my intrepid explorers going out taking photographs today. So it looks like they're using both, Pete.
Oh, what, the
I was
caravan?
going
or
to say
what?
the Trump supporter won, didn't she?
No, it might be using yours, Pete.
Oh, all right.
So yeah, I did put the thing in that the first liaison that I ever had was in the park, but I didn't get as far as putting that in the article, Pete.
Oh, right.
Oh,
Then I found out that the he woman was a he man and I ran away, so I didn't mention that. Right, okay, so right, so let's find out if there's any news today. Is it me or we're down a few? But it's fine. They're missing out on some good stuff, aren't they? So right, okay, Andy, any news from you, darling?
No, sorry, not this week.
Oh, so you've got every right to apologise, Andy. Okay, who's next? The witch incarnate, Anne.
No, I've got no news.
Right, Anne Savita. The real witch that we all aspire not to be, Margaret.
careful.
Well, they're doing this survey about High Street, the supposedly Roman road. It's starting on the 8th of August from Bampton Common, and the idea is to find any remains of this Roman road, or if in fact there was an earlier track there that was made before that they just built over the top.
How dare you even suggest that the Romans never built these roads? It's not something that I've ever written about in a publication, Margaret.
Well, this is what they're hoping to ascertain over a couple of weeks.
Absolutely.
They're
Bill.
asking-
By the Celts.
Oh,
Now you
yeah.
shut up. You
Well,
are
speak
talking
up.
about Bampton, not Brampton.
Bampton
Oh.
Common.
We've done Bampton before, haven't we? We've already had this discussion about
We
Brampton.
we
and Bampton.
mentioned it, but it was just in the paper this week that they want volunteers.
Yeah, well, you know what it is, don't you? They'll have volunteers and they'll just say, go out into the moors, right? They'll send out 100 and see how many come back.
It is a bit remote.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, what we'll do, we'll send Claire up there and she'll probably be the only one left. And the reason why she survives is she's eaten everybody, you know?
Oh,
Because Claire knows how to skin, take flesh off bones and sort of things like that. So,
she's
I think
fantastic, isn't she?
yeah, let's just
Yeah.
move on from Claire. Right, miserable Rog. Rog, what are you doing here tonight?
Well, it's the plan that you set up for me. Look up your book.
By the way, Drina's away because she's her son's coming over or something. But you note that Drina's not here and David today. So you never know. You never know.
Well, I had an ice cream with David yesterday, and he said he was coming along.
Ooh.
Oh,
Oh,
No, we didn't arrange it. I just happened to bump into him.
oh yeah,
It was
Like,
an
like
ice
you do.
cream.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was having
like
an ice
you do.
cream.
You
We live
happen to
on one
be-
side and he lives on the other side of the estuary.
Yeah,
You happen to bump into him.
and Andy, yeah, exactly. You happen to take the train over there, and he meets you
No,
at the
no, no,
train
no.
station. It's complete by accident.
You need looking after. I'll be there for you.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But he said he gets very tired, so maybe he's tired tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, you wore him out. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not doing well.
It wasn't that long ago he had COVID, was he? And he did get it quite
No.
bad. So,
He said he had to have the ambulance to his house. He was so ill.
wow.
Really?
Mm.
Flippin' heck. Well, oh God. Right, okay. I don't know what we're even talking about. I asked Roger, and I don't know what he said, so I don't. Right. So, Peter, anything you want to say, darling?
Not really.
Other than Sandra.
Mm.
So in other words, Pete, it would probably be a simple matter that if you do pick her up again, you're gonna have to you're gonna have to beat the horn, and then you're gonna have to meet her outside or something.
On the
Well,
water.
yeah, she usually comes outside, and around about 7 o'clock I pick her up, and she's usually either coming out the door then, or she's already out, and then she just comes up a couple of steps and it's in the car.
Yeah.
But tonight, as I say, I got there and she was already flat out.
Oh, dear, dear.
And she
Yeah,
got
you
one of
never.
these things on her arm. She press a button and it's an alarm.
Yeah.
And the alarm's back to a center where then she can tell them what, what's happened, what's wrong, and things.
Okay. Okay.
She
No,
said not to move her, so we picked her up.
Right. Okay. Okay. Right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make. Claire's just joined us, which is great. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make Margaret a co-host. So Margaret, if you see David come up on screen, you're going to have to let him on. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Right. Look, don't feel stressed by it. Okay. It's a simple thing. Okay.
I'll go and find what you're doing.
No, Claire just joined us, but what?
She did.
But she went, oh,
Oh, I'll tell you what, one of you is going to have to look out for Claire. She's in the register. It's turning up today anyway. Right, so today I want us to look at, I'm going to read out some blurb, right? And then we're going to go to the topic. Does that make sense? Good.
Yeah.
But we got to keep it an enigma, a bit like Roger, who's so much of an enigma, I really don't care anymore.
yeah.
What are you laughing at?
Roger,
Yeah.
when I do like my live shows, right? Can you come on the stage with me? Because you'd be a scream.
Yeah. Okay, Carl. If you
Yeah.
want.
He's a straight man.
Yeah, no, well, what we'll do, we'll have Roger in character as he is now. And I'll have him interrupting every now and again. I'll tell him to shut up. Then we'll forcibly move him off the stage and put him in a wheelchair at the back of the room or something.
That's it.
Right.
Whatever I can help.
Roger, shut up. Right, okay. Right, we will get started now. Oh,
That'll be nice.
I should be full screen. And thanks for joining us, Claire. Now, we've looked a great deal at star carr, and I haven't tried this out on anyone, so I'm going to see how it goes. When we originally looked at the star carr pendant, we had an image, and we really didn't know a lot then. And the image, different lines on this image, and there's a little video now where it shows the lines on this tiny little pendant. Now this sounds a little bit sort of, what is Carl on about? What is this pendant? So I'm going to read a tiny little bit of blurb, then I'm going to show you the first image. So in 2015, an engraved pendant, a shale pendant, really soft sedimentary rock, a shale pendant. Shale can be made, because it's very soft, it can be made into rings, it can be made into pendant, it can be made into armbands, anything really. Anyway, the shale pendant itself, that dates back possibly up to 11,000 years ago, which is an amazing date, was found during excavations at the now we refer to it now as the early Mesolithic site of star carr in 2015. And on it are engraved motifs on this sort of pendant. You think this pendant's big, don't you? It's tiny. It's a really small pendant, really small. Now, finding anything inscribed from this period of time is extremely rare, whether it's a carving in a cave, whether it's a carving on a stone or anything, is extremely rare. And when we say extremely rare, there may be a few dozen examples around, but that's still rare. sort of when you come into something like the Iron Age, there's lots of carvings and lots of art around and so on. And the Roman period, it's the same, but you would still say that even in the Iron Age and in the Roman period, even when you find carvings in those two periods that I've just mentioned, they are still rare. So when you're using the word rare within a Mesolithic context, is very, very, very special indeed. What we do come across in sort of the prehistoric periods, going Mesolithic into Neolithic, are pendants from Scandinavia. And you know, these obviously we mentioned Scandinavia last week actually, and I'm glad we did. We mentioned Sweden last week. So this sort of idea of artwork, this idea of expression, expressions either whether it's art or communication, again we'll use that word, very rare. So this pendant itself, in regards to a pendant, something worn around the neck or worn around on an armband or something like that, or on some kind of chain, is of it. There's a hole in it. There's a hole being made into it, and this pendant, it's seen to be one of the earliest, not the rarest, but the earliest portable pieces of specifically carved art from the Mesolithic period ever found. We do actually have portable bits of art in the Paleolithic period, but we don't really understand what they are, and they're not pendants, and they're carved on bits of bone mainly. And it's referred, well, before we get the image, building up this thing in your head. So you're thinking, well, what does this thing look like? I'm trying to build this up. It's a small sort of triangular type object with a hole in it, with lines, barb line motifs on there. And this itself, the artifact itself, we're told is particularly Scandinavian, Danish in style. And we're thinking about a time that people from Europe were still moving back and forth from Great Britain into Europe, and therefore the idea of differences between people from Scandinavia and here they weren't differences. We were the same people. So I think the best thing to do is if we have a little bit of a share now. There's lots of, actually, do you know what I'm going to do? I've got lots of images set up, and I've had these images on my little device for months, right? And that's the size of the pendant. That's how big it is. It's tiny. It's a tiny pendant. And briefly, if you squint your eyes, there's little lines on it. That's more or less as it's been taken out the ground. And there we go. 11,000-year-old pendant is earliest known Mesolithic art. Well, that's quite a headline to make. Again, found within this context of Star-Carr, within this array of artifacts. Now, there it is again. It's a tiny little object. You can see a little bit more detail on that. So, not sure it, and you can clearly see a hole's been made into that stone as well. So when it was first discovered, the lines were barely visible there, because they said there's bits of material in there. So even there in that image, they're barely visible. But using a range of digital imaging techniques, it has been possible to examine them in detail and determine the style of engraving, as well as the order in which the lines might have been made. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to the lecture that we did this, and we're sort of going to maybe try to work out where we were in that last lecture. And then we've got images which tell us at which point the lines were made on the pendant. And then we've got another image that tells us a color chart, a color image, when everything was made and how everything reacts. So it's trying to go back to a previous presentation and try to bring all that out again. And I think Andy and whoever else was involved in that presentation might be able to help me on the way. In addition, microwear and residue analysis in between those little lines would apply to examine whether the pendant showed signs that it had been strung or worn, and whether the lines had been made more visible through the applications of pigment, as had been suggested in regards to some Danish amber pendants. So we do have what's called a GIF image, which is basically a changing image, which we've got the images evolving. But without saying any more, you could immediately think that this is not all the lines on here. By the way, we're not looking at a high resolution image. This is exactly what I want to show you at this stage. And I would say that I've found some stones very recently that have some engravings on, which none of the wider archaeological world or none of the world knows that I've actually got. And maybe I might show you them one day, but they won't be made public until I'm prepared to present them. So we've got some really nice stones with some carvings on, and they're hidden. And some of those carvings on the stone, a fairly chunky bit of stone, not the size of this, but they're really indistinguishable. But if you look at them in the right light with the right technology, you can see the lines on them and how they developed. But going back to this image and the lines on this stone, if we want to go back to that earlier lecture, you can imagine that the very well-defined line on there is more recent, and the very lighter lines on it are much older. So that means just briefly, this was created over a period of time on this shale object. Now, we had suggestions and we sort of an idea what these things might mean. Is it art? Is it a way of keeping a tally? Is it a map? What is it? Now, the problem is when you do look at this sort of level of art, when you do, and what we're going to do, we're going to move completely away from the images that I've got on my screen, because I just want to get some random stuff up on you, right? Just sort of see what's on Google, right? And look at that there. People are making, there it is. You can see that more clearly. Now that tells us another story. You can tell from a high resolution image what we've been talking about. Now we spent quite some time on looking at this pendant, and you can see that the line going through the middle is very recent. In regards to this, obviously the line going through the middle is 11,000 years ago, but that's the most recent. And the most faded lines on there are the most older lines on it, right? And then you can actually see towards the left-hand corner, there's a line with barbs along it, look fairly worn, right? And you've got further over on the right-hand side, on the bottom right-hand side, you've got also a line that's disappeared with some of the barbs on it. Now, one thing that we do know, and one thing that we can say, is that with much more higher resolution imagery, which we have got to show you today, the stress that's been placed onto this stone by working has a fracture signature that can be detected under microscopic conditions. Obviously, there's always fracture lines into a stone when some kind of impression has been made onto the stone. That's exactly what we're talking about. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to tell you a little bit more. So what we've got, there's lots of information out there on this pendant, and it is very useful to think that there has been a real focused positive analysis on the archaeology. So what we're going to do, we've got other little bits of information that we want to read through, and we'll read through one set of information, and we'll look at an image and see how it works, and that's where we're going to go now. So again, what we've got on the internet is lots, and this is basically a cross section, and you can see the back. There's not much in regards to the back. Now, you could think that this itself has actually, this may have had pigment on it. It may have been daubed with something. And the headlines here are how we can cast new light on Britain's oldest Mesolithic art. So one of the deep things that we do say about archaeology is making the most of the artifacts that we've got. And before we go any further, I know that there's a cup of tea waiting for me over there, so I've got to put some milk in it. So stay there.
Pendants were used by people other than just decoration or jewelry. They were used to predict and answer questions. And I would suggest that this pendant would have been used for that sort of thing rather than a piece of adornment.
Yeah.
Right, Peter, you shouldn't have said that then. I want you to say it again.
Well, I say that this pendant, I would say, was used to answer questions and for other uses rather than simply a method of adornment. It was there, and the markings on it, I would imagine, are there for a very good reason.
And actually, Pete, right?
Yep.
Actually, I would really concur with that. Can you see all the different images on here?
Yep. Yep.
And you can start to see different perspectives. We will look at some of these perspectives, and in different lights.
Why did it have a hole in it if it wasn't worn?
Well, that's to suspend it.
Suspend it from a tree branch or something.
It can react to questions and can react to different conditions.
And also, this is when the object is damp, right? So obviously, there's lots of deep things, and it's going to be a struggle tonight to bring everything out, to try and draw everything out from this object, because Pete's right. One of the things about the Mesolithic period is that some of the things in the Mesolithic period are easy to interpret, and what I've got to mention is that we looked at those footprints. Now, I remember in one of the other classes that they basically said, "Oh, Carl, you spent like 2 hours talking about footprints. How boring was that?" And I basically said, "Well, if you don't like it, I don't want you in my classes anymore, because everybody else found this really interesting." And that's what I actually said. Because what we did in that lecture, it wasn't any of you guys, it was in another class, right? And basically we had the footprints, and we were able to draw so much out of those footprints, right? With loads of information, but little information at the same time. You know, what more can we say about footprints, right? But we did. And if you're understanding what I'm talking about now, we've got this image in front of you, and there's so much information there, and it's really complex information that is in front of us. It's not simple information; it's complex. I would like one of you to even dare and say, "Oh, it's a shale stone with lines on it," and somebody sat in the corner and they've done that. Well, no, this is a pendant that's been used over a long period of time, right? So, okay, take that thought back into it. Okay, forget the word pendant. Let's use the word stone, right? Let's just forget about what Peter said. Let's forget about what Margaret said. Let's forget about the whole. It's a thing. It's a stone. This is a stone that needed to be held in the hand, right? Or on a hard surface, or on a piece of wood, and it's held down and the lines are placed into it. You may think that putting the lines on that shale are going to be really easy to do, right? Even with an iron object, with an with a dowel, right? You think that, oh, you know, you can mark the line in there and it's going to be as deep as the one through the middle. It's not going to be. You've got to put a lot of pressure on that. You can't really just hold it in your hand. You've got to deliberately do it, right? So this is not an object that's accidental, that somebody sat. Well, I tell you what, we're going to sit in the corner, right, and confuse archaeologists in future generations. This hasn't been done in one day. There's lines being placed on it with care, which may have taken 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And then a few months down the line, more lines are being put on it. And maybe a few years down the line, more lines are being put on it, right? So when we get that context, chuck the hole back onto it, chuck what Peter onto it, put the idea of the footprints onto it. And even without reading any of my notes, we've got that far. We've got that far with this object. Now, my notes in front of me, I've only done one little paragraph. So what I need to do now is I need to go on. Because I could, when we looked at the footprints, we didn't know a lot, and we still don't know a lot. When we looked at the footprints, the 31st of May, those specific footprints were there for a short period of time and they went, right? We know the length, the height, the pressure placed on them. We know the conditions that they were created in. We know when they were created and all these other things. Here, there's a lot more. Even between those little lines, there's residue, there's patina. There's the idea, was it a left-handed person who did it? Was it a right-handed person who did this? Could it have been a woman? Could it have been a man? I reckon we can answer all those problems and answers, because there's the way we make marks on things, the way we create things as human beings uses different types of pressure and uses different types of tools, right? So I believe first thing first, you're going to be using a very, very hard tool indeed. Something like flint, not chert, not chalcedony, not antler. You're going to use something like a flint, and then that flint's going to be very specific with a very hard edge, right? Or you've got some kind of dowel or an awl or something that's really hard. And even then, when you're actually making those lines in there, you're going to need to use different tools, and you're going to need to sharpen your tools. So this is a lot more complex. A piece of
quartz crystal could have done that.
But again, Pete, right? That quartz crystal is going to eventually go blunt.
Oh yeah.
With the pressure. Yeah,
well,
yeah.
More than one.
Yeah. That's the point. That is the point. So an early 11,000-year-old pendant, thought to be the earliest known Mesolithic art in Britain, right? We'll allow that to be said. Can now be printed in 3D, explored online and viewed globally thanks to collaborations across our departments. So in other words, we can actually 3D image this as well. We can send copies of this all the way around the world. Now, that's even, you know, I was in work in Newquay. This guy handed me a 3D lizard, right? That had working limbs and all the rest of it that he had created using a 3D printer, right? And why am I mentioning that? What relevance has that got in there? But we can make copies of this and send it all the way around the world. So the pendant discovered in sediment at the early Mesolithic site of Star Carr has been examined and worked upon by York University, Manchester University, Chester University, and other universities. Again, using the words crafted from a single piece of shale. Yes, the plectrum shaped artifact. Yes, it looks like a plectrum. Now, come on, I dare one of you to say it's part of a musical instrument. Go for it. Features a series of lines which archaeologists believe may represent, right? What did you say that represented, Peter?
Well, I think it's a pendant which would have been held and dangled and used to answer questions,
Right,
even find water.
Right, okay, right. I'm going to leave that there, and we're going to come back to it after I've said this, right?
Yeah.
So, which archaeologists believe may represent a tree,
All
a
right,
map,
yeah.
a leaf, even tally marks, right? So what we go on, Anne.
Could it have been used as a protection? You know, that some god was involved in it. Something that, like an amulet that people wear. That seems to happen in a lot of tribes.
And the other thing as well is the other thing as well is just because we've only found one so far in a British context doesn't mean to say it's not the only one. And then what we're going to do, right? I don't want Pete to repeat what he's just said. I want him to take it further. I want him to then share with us if we agree with what everything Pete says. How do you explain the lines on it, Pete?
Well, I say pendulums respond in various ways to various needs, and these may represent the number of times it was used in a particular way and the response that it gave. And so yeah,
go on.
as I say, the response it gave to various questions and the area at the time. Were you near a ley line? But does it represent ley lines? Does it represent something else?
Yeah.
Right. So there's 2 points here. There's 2 points, right? The differentiation of the lines and how that would react as you put the lines on it over time, how that would to be seen, how the stone would react as you spun it or something. That's just one thing. What I'm trying to say is obviously the displacement of the lines and the way the lines work on it could actually have some subliminal acoustic resonance as it spins, right? If you can understand that concept. But the other concept that I'm going to chuck in here is perfectly shaped to represent the palm of your hand.
But it could be the speaker stone.
Or and that would fit easily in the hand, but it would also represent a map of a hand, right? Because if you look down there on the right hand corner, that is exactly what I've got.
Yeah,
I've got that.
yeah,
You've got that, Margaret.
yeah.
Yep.
But you know, the vertical lines on the top left, I thought those look awfully familiar, those crossed lines going across the vertical. Where have I seen that before? That looks really familiar to me. And I've just got my book, Ogham. Can you see that?
I was just going to say that. Does it represent language?
It looks like Ogham writing.
Right. We need to go back to we need to get off this a minute. We need to do the Ogham bit because I want us to deliberately go down that channel now. I want us to be I want us to be so immersed into this object because it's so important. I feel it so is. Right. So what we're going to do, Margaret, let's just chuck your book up and then I want to go over to Andy. Right. Keep your mouth ready, Andy. So Margaret.
Yeah, well, I've got this book about hidden histories, and I know that the Ogham is much, much later, but just looking at that pendant, I thought, gosh, I've seen that before. I know I've seen it somewhere. And I was scratching my head trying to think, well, why is it so familiar? What is it? And then I remembered it.
We will get Ogham on the screen now. We're going to get Ogham on the screen, okay? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to get Ogham. Then I want Margaret and I want Andy to come in on this one. So what we're going to do, we're going to do this pseudo. We're not going to. We've got an Ogham pendant.
Oh,
right. Okay. Let's just. We've not. This is not tried and tested, guys. We're going to do it. Okay. Ogham pendant.
Yeah.
Um,
That's it. Oh,
do you know what? This is too easy for us. That's just too easy, isn't it? That is too easy, right? What I want is a stone with loads of ogham on it, right? This is
Yeah.
just too ogham. Let's just type ogham stone, right? And then I want you to blurt your stuff, Margaret.
well, I'm looking at a Pictish stone in Aberdeenshire with
Okay.
ogham, and it looks
Okay.
just like the pendant. Yeah.
There's lines. There's lines every bloody where.
That's very good eyesight, Margaret.
Mm.
All the way to Aberdeen.
Yeah, fine.
So
Yeah.
look at that one there. Look at all the ogham marks on that.
Yeah.
And doesn't that look very? Do you know what? There's wear on that stone, right? There's wear on that stone after 1,500 years. This has been in the ground for 11,000 years, right? This has been out in the open. That stone hasn't. So Margaret, say a bit more, and then I want Andy to come in on this.
Well, each group of lines represents a letter. I think they were mostly found in Scotland and Ireland with these, and it shows on this one in Aberdeenshire, it shows a vertical line with the horizontal lines going off to each side, and they spell out things like wolf.
Get your book up on the screen. Come on, we want to see his book. Come on.
Can you see that?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can. Yeah, yes. Got it. So if we, that is a really good concept. Now I want to bring Andy in, right? And I want to ask Andy the question before Andy says anything. I want to ask Andy the question. Did we ever think that this could be ogham text when we looked at it last time? I think not, but then again, Andy, you could correct me, so go for it.
No, we did talk about it because there's an obvious connection there because it looks very similar to that. But I think we did rule it out simply because if you look at the pattern on it, it is a repetitive linear pattern. The little short legs, if you count, they were in groups of 5 each time, so it's not different ones. But that doesn't mean to say it's not an earlier form of that, you know.
Yeah.
But so it's an intriguing thing. It could be just designed because it is linear, repetitive, and it's what's it when it's equal on both sides. But that's the little dashes, not the other big lines. We're just dealing with the ones that look like ogham. You see, you see them. They're in groups of 5 each time. Which would suggest it's not, but like you said, you can see the ones there have gone right across the rest. All of them are all on one side, except for those 2 in the top left. But
if it was a pendant, the hole's kind of in the wrong place. It wouldn't hang correctly.
Yeah,
but is it meant to hang? And this is the thing. You know, we do have wear on that hole. We do definitely have wear on that hole.
Maybe it's like a spirograph.
But as you say, that line down the middle is like the lines on the palm of your hand.
But it is, yes, and the ones coming off to the top left are as well. But the others aren't. But then again, you know, we're talking about a period of time, so it may have developed into the things. I was just thinking if it's been worn, obviously it's been worn to make the hole, but if you put something in that hole and drew around it or circled round, you know, and use that as a pivotal point, you would get all sorts of patterns as well. Like
Andy's spirograph graph. So obviously you spin it around and you draw and you I can see that. I can see that.
How they made those tiny little ones, though, I don't know. That is so small and so delicate and so precise.
Andy, they've gone through the detail, and I got to be honest with you, right? Quartz would not give that impression. Even a very, very, very sharp flint would struggle with that.
Yeah, well, don't forget, shale can be quite soft though as well. So, but then if it was that soft, it would have broken before now, wouldn't it? So
yeah, it would have. Right. So we haven't got the scientific image on here because the one image I wanted to show you, right, is this one where there's a complete breakdown. Hang on a minute. Oh God, I lost that. Right, okay. I'll just go back with that. Hang on a minute. Let's just see if I haven't lost that entirely. Hang on. Let's just try and get this a minute. Right, we got that. That's fairly good. If we keep that a minute, we'll read what I've got here. So basically, the research has been led by the archaeologist rather than any other experts, and it's obviously looking at other collaborations as well. So what they've done, they've done collaborations with the archaeological departments, with physics departments at Hull, a medical department at York, digital imagery departments as well, which are casting new light onto the meaning and significance of the precious find. Now, this whole thing, I'm gonna keep going with this, and then after the break, I'll get that image on that I just had a few moments ago, which I've got to get back up on the screen, but we don't need that a minute. So the work itself, the in-depth work itself, is a triumph of research, and picked up the British Archaeological Award for research that very year. And it's that professor again, Nikki Milner of York University, leading the research. She's basically said that they work together to try and understand, like we're doing this discussion, you guys and me today, we're looking at this, by integrating a broad variety of scientific and imaging techniques to study the pendant. We have developed an in-depth understanding of its likely source, production, method of engraving, and its deposition within the ground. Now, this is a point that's a very, very interesting point. That word deposition. How did it finally end up in the ground? When did they decide that it's to end up in the ground? I'm gonna use a chuck away idea. That it ended up in the ground when people forgot the meaning of the object, or that the person who knew the meaning of the object just passed away. But we don't have this associated with a body. So how did it end up in the ground? Was it lost? Such a very important object like this being lost. You know, we all get very, but the thing is, what we think in the past is that they didn't lose objects. They did. They lost very precious objects. How many of us have lost things that have been really special to us? Wedding rings, even big things like mobile phones. We may have lost glasses, which are really special to us because we need them to see, right? You know, this could have been lost by accident, right? So we can't really think about that it was deliberately placed into the ground amongst a load of other crap, right? Or was it lost amongst that load of other crap? Mind my French. So the latest imaging methods, and we're going to look at that one and that image after the break, were used to trace the directions of the lines, to understand their relationship to each other and the line order. There is a plan, there is a chart, there is a method to this. And so what they did was to try to understand how this would work from a high scientific level, anatomically, thinking how this would work in regards not to the sense of anatomy, but how in regards the carvings would be made on this by whoever, what hands that they use to carve this, and what tools. And what they're doing, they've been scanning the pendant using white light, 3D surface scanning, and scanning electron microscopes, which obviously get the idea of depth, finding things that are on the stone that you can't really see with the naked eye. This was useful for analyzing the lines, but it also meant that 3D printouts of the pendant could be made, which is great. So there's all these copies out there. This adds, and the other thing as well is that there's a wider significance in the technology at this stage, a great wider significance, and the wider significance of technology is that you don't necessarily need the object to study it. With 3D imagery, 3D copies, and the data that you've got, you can just sit back and try to read it all. So, and the significance of the study means, for instance, that teachers or museum educators could print out copies for children to annotate themselves and to try and evolve. And you can make copies of this and you can paint it and you can try to sort of see how this works. And you can do whatever Pete's saying. You can use it as a spirograph, object center. You can use it for all these things. You can use it as a stencil. You can use it. Actually, the one thing that I thought earlier on, and this is something that I know that we've never mentioned about this object. How about using this as you put a little bit of material or something over it, and you'd use it to make ribbons? What would that mean? And the sense of prognostication. Peter, are you seeing what I'm saying? So if you put a bit of skin over this and you do a rubbing, you could prognosticate from the definition of the rubbings what is on that piece of material, and you could read from it. That's another form of prognostication, rather than what Pete's saying, and what Pete's saying. The other thing as well is that what we've got to say is what we say with all this archaeology. And this is an important point. This is more important than lots of the other things that we've said. When it was originally created, they may have used it for one thing, and then eventually they used it for something else. So, you know, it's like it's what came first, the chicken or the egg, or what came first, using it to try to define language, or try to define telling a story. Try to use it as a record, and Andy knows where I'm coming with this. If I don't find this in my notes, if we don't, there was an object that we saw that we looked at really recently, and you could possibly use these grooves to resonate something, right? To tell a story, like we do with a record player. Now, those of you haven't, Pete's followed it and Roger has. What we've got is a class on a Thursday evening called Tim Ingall's The Line, right? We follow the line, right? This is the reverse to a record player, right? So when you've got a record player and you've got a stylus and it goes around, it plays something. It tells you stories that were recorded in 1900. It tells you one of Al Johnson's songs from the 1930s, or you could have Fleetwood Mac from the late 1970s playing on a record, right? But equally, the line itself might be able to resonate, right? And this, again, the complexities of that and what I'm saying. So the one thing that we can say is that looking at something, having something so rare as this isn't so rare. I'm trying to glean as much as we can from this without even looking at the other stuff I wanted to show you. Very recently, there was a Bob Dylan record that went for auction, wasn't there? And what did it go for? Millions or whatever it went for. That Bob Dylan record is unique, and it's only one of a kind Bob Dylan record that went for auction. But lots of records have been made from lots of other artists. Is that it's chosen that that's a one-off. Is this a one-off? It's no longer a one-off because we've got loads of copies. So that puts it into a physical world, into not a rare understanding of an artifact, but a much wider understanding and in a much wider interpretation that we're doing today. So digital imagery has come a long way. Researchers used reflectance transformation imagery. So basically that reflects to create an image, a negative image of the positive or the negative inscriptions on here. So what we're able to generate an interactive image. Again, this is we've got a GIF image, which is the closest that we're going to look at, right? When after the break, we look at the GIF image and we look at that color template that tells you when all the lines were put on it. So we got the image that's sort of the GIF image. So do you know, it's so exciting when we use an object like this and we go for it, right? And we go for it in the moment. What spoils archaeology is when we obsess about things like Stonehenge, when there's so much out there to study, like objects like this. It's really shameful that we keep coming up with nonsense about Stonehenge and we keep studying it, when in fact we could put money into studying things like this, like the footprints which were lost, which we learn a lot more from than keep studying the same old thing. For those of you who love Stonehenge, then fair enough, but it's just what I feel. So what we're talking about is the techniques that we're using from Professor Milner and what she's saying. These techniques that we've got now are fascinating tools for making a rare artifact accessible. The artifact is now accessible. People can explore the pendant by zooming in and out and changing the light source in their hand, so you can see it in greater detail and expand and try to understand, love it, and interact with it. The whole thing about this is that even though this is a teaching aid now, it was a teaching aid back in the time. Whoever had it, whatever it was used for, and I like the idea of the talk stone thing, but at Peter, people would have been talking with this around anyway, so it is a talk stone. Let's not make that a myth or something that we don't understand.
With the talk stone, it was the person who held the stone could talk, and yes, then they would then pass the stone to someone else to give their opinion of the subject in hand. It's the subject they were actually talking about.
But that may have been one reality of one purpose of the stone. And what we're saying is, I believe, right, Pete's right, but I'm going to say, I'm going to agree, and also I'm going to move it forward. One thing that we don't talk about, one thing that I have been subliminally saying, is that very little in archaeology has ever been used to have one interpretation, right? So okay, let's just go for it. A chambered burial chamber from the Neolithic period. Well, we know that most of them were used for something else before they become a burial chamber. Then they were used for other purposes afterwards. Look at a causewayed enclosure site from the Neolithic period. You've got all these ditches dug, right, to put human remains in them. And then you take out the human remains and all the ditches are added together to make a site. And then eventually it turns into something like Maiden Castle. What we're talking about, nothing in history and archaeology remains in the moment that we want to gravitate to. For example, you get shops today that were once churches, and then the shops convert into a mosque, and then the mosque, I think I've seen an example recently that you've got then a mosque turned back into a church or something, right? But I think, or maybe I'm just sniffing newsprint, but what I'm saying is that so many things in history and archaeology never stay still in that moment. They always evolve. So you could think of this being used for so many different things over so many different times. And this could have been used over 100, 200 years. How many hands did this pass through to be used over that period of time? If a generation is 25 years, used for 100 years, that's 4 generations. Every generation blames the one before, but every generation, what we do see, there's an interpretation on how it's used. For example, I've got my granddad's bayonet that I'm proud to say that he put through the chest of a Frenchman after killing a German in the First World War. I've got that with me. And that bayonet itself was used to kill and maim, and then it's used as an ornament, right? And you're thinking, well, that's 2 uses. Then it's used as an object of history. That's 3 uses. Then along it, there's little knacks along the blade, right, where children have used it with another sword that I've got to sort of fight with. So you're coming back to the original purpose. So what we're saying is that but that it's not being used to kill. Children ain't killing each other, they're just using to play with. But the fact of the matter is that lots of things in history are used for many different things, and that's a very powerful point. So when the pendant was first uncovered, the lines were barely visible, as we've already said at the beginning. That was the first. That's one thing that we started with. But using these digital image techniques, it has been possible to examine them in detail and determine the style of engravings, as well as the order in which the lines might have been made or were made. Let's not do might. Let's just do were made on there. And obviously what we've got all these images. You know, one thing about somebody criticized me recently, and they said, oh, you sit there and you look at the Google stuff, and I'm thinking, well, that's the one I wanted. That's what we want. That's what we want after the break, right? But we'll chuck that there. We'll just get familiar with stuff. What were you going to say, Pete? Go on.
I said, well, you were going through them so fast. There were so many nice images there of that we could look at, but you were going through them too quickly.
Pete, what we're going to do, we're going to please you, Pete. I'm going to go. I'm just going to do the Google thing, right?
Oh.
And we are going to do exactly what you said, and what I you know, there's just so many Peter's right. There's just so many really nice images up on here, right?
There are, yeah.
And
look at that.
Look at that, where on the right there, somebody's brought this alive, right? And right, somebody's made a replica of this and chucked it on Etsy, right?
Yeah.
Did it originally look like this? That's an interpretation. That's a modern interpretation. We like it. We like it, and why not have these interpretations? So we look there, and we've got all these there. Look at that. Look at that one there on the back. Now I can remember. That's not a very clear one. I can remember us talking about. Or maybe again, Andy, I've got this wrong. Maybe when we looked at this, we basically said, well, did they paint something on the back? Maybe there was another image on the back. Which this goes on to residue analysis. And again, so if we go back to that and we sort of
just look at the back there a moment, that
Yeah,
back is very much worn smooth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which would suggest it's been rubbing up against something for a long period of time to get that smooth. As a pendant would, yeah.
As a pendant would. Can I just make a comment? I was given by a lady once a beautiful pentagram, right? And it was like a goodbye present, and really nice lady, and you know, she had a complicated life and I had a complicated life, and she said, look, there's something that you wanted me to get you. So I said, what? Yeah, a pentagram. And she said, I'll get you a pentagram, right? And there'll be a beautiful moonstone in the middle, right? So she sent me that, and we said goodbye, and that was it, right? And I wore, and she said, you've got to always wear this pentagram, right? So I wore it, and then and then you could see on the back after 20 years, it started. Not 20 years, that's wrong, 15 years, that's all. It started to wear down on the back, and that's metal, right? So if you wear something continually, but Andy, there is a point. You need to be able to keep that side and not twirling as it's on your flesh, Andy, right? So that has worn down, Andy, but it has to be something that keeps it wearing on that one side. Do you agree, Andy?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Can you, Andy? Can you? I hope we're going to get through this tonight. But Andy, is there any? You know, when I talked about the pentagram, because there was a stone on the front, right? It usually rubbed on the backside onto the chest, right? Because there was that weight on the front with that stone, right? And it wore on the back, right? So how could you make sure that this only wears on one side? Have you got a suggestion for that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, just put a loop in it. So I mean, in modern times, you'd have a metal loop and then a chain on it, and it would hang flat. They could just put it in with a knot, would hold it in place.
And it would just wear on that side. Yeah, it would just wear.
Just while I remember, I found a picture of a map of Star Carr that is a very similar shape. I've sent it to you in an email to the Archaeology Cymru website, to the email address.
A map of Star Carr.
Yeah, that looks very similar shape to that.
Oh,
Oh my God, Andy, we're not going to do this today, are we?
It's a, it's a geophysical, a geological picture, which is weird, but it's a very similar shape, and I don't know how they've got that, including the circle, which is the hole. But
God, Andy, stop.
Yeah.
I want to know what's the important thing the pendant or the information on the pendant?
Or the hole.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was just general information, it would have been easier just to carve it onto a big boulder.
Or a piece of wood. Yeah.
This must be something personal.
Or even a piece of wood that hasn't survived. But can I just mention that hole then could act as a little lug, so you could actually put a leather that's got a flattened side, and then that would hang from the front, wouldn't it? So it would wear at the back. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have a little rivet or a lug, and it just and that would nicely polish, because the hole on the back is also, if you look at the hole on the back is also very worn, where the hole on the front isn't.
Yep.
You see that?
I would have said the other way around. It looks like the hole on the front, because of the shadow there, has got more of a chamfer on it, as in that it's been done from that side, which would suggest it had been drilled from that front side to the back. Also, that might be wear from whatever strap or fastening it was as well. Yeah, that's like a countersunk hole, isn't it? You know. So.
Yeah. It's sort of
And the back doesn't look quite so countersunk as that.
No.
Which is what would happen if you drilled through with a modern drill from the front to the back. So.
Yeah.
Have they been able to date the markings on it from the earliest to the latest?
Well, we have a little table. I don't think we can do precise dates. Do you know, guys, when we have a break, it's going to have to be short, because I do want to finish tonight, but I need to find this map. I've got to say what I need to say about this, because I've got one set of text and we still got to analyze 2 images.
Right.
So we've got to look at the GIF image. We've got to look at the color image that I refound. But I'm going to say this. I want to say this, like, we're loving this. I'm loving this one. So residue analysis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Residue analysis. Researchers from the Department of Physics now, with the Archaeology, also carried out microwear and residue analysis on the pendant using a microscope known as the Raman microscope, allowing high magnification visualization of the pendant. They looked at whether the pendant shows signs that it had been strung or worn, and whether the lines had been made more visible through the application of pigments. One possibility is the pendant belonged to a shaman. There's a joke there that Claire would understand. Shaman or prodigy, Claire? Anyway, shaman.
I thought that anyway.
Shut up. So belonged to a shaman. Headdresses made out of red deer antlers found close to the pendant, similar to those used by shamans in the past by some Siberian groups. And it is possible that shamans were present at Star Carr. So what we're talking about, we're looking at this object, but we're also interpreting those headdresses, not as hunting headdresses, but headdresses used by shamans. Can I just mention one thing about the headdresses, right? The headdresses seem to only be used for a certain period at Star Carr, in my view. We're not seeing headdresses used for a long period at Star Carr, in that there's bits of headdresses in that layer, there's bits of headdresses in that layer, there's bits over there, there's a specific number, and then that's it. So, but this stone itself is far more expansive in its interpretation. We can only guess what the engravings mean, but engraved amber pendants found in Denmark have been interpreted as amulets used for spiritual personal protection. Without collaboration across our department and the broad spectrum of scientific analysis, applied to this object, we would never have been able to discover so much about the pendant and make it accessible to people worldwide. Do you know what we've done today is so far, and we've done well over an hour of discussion on this as well, an hour and 10 minutes. We've done really well, and we've done bits of the science, and we've done really well. So we've got one little bit of text that I want to do. We've got the 2 images that I want to, and what we've got is we've got a little bit of sort of a little sort of few answers in this next text. But obviously we've got these 2 images that I want us to look at. And also Andy's sent me a map, and what I'm going to do, right, I'm going to do the map now. I'm going to have to share this from my phone, and Andy, where is it? Andy, it's gone to junk mail, Andy. So here we go. I'm going to take it off junk mail. I'm going to see if I can get it on. I'm going to have to share it from this screen, and right. Oh, Andy, no. Right. Okay. Right. So, right. All right. So get that idea in my head. Get that idea in your head. And I think I know what Andy's saying. The sort of area of the settlements and stuff. Okay. Let's just do that. And I'm gonna try. I'm gonna get off that a minute. And so we did a few more of Pete's images there. So Andy, you're going to have to see what we're doing now. So if we can, right, okay, Andy, there we go. You can all see that.
Oh,
Go on, Andy.
it's gone.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I want to see that. If you look at the dark, the linear line, the black line is the outline. It's almost, oh, it's gone off, Carl. Forgetting all the nice little coloured bits.
Yeah, go for it.
I can't quite see it yet. All right,
No,
there, right
I can't
there. There's a black line that makes an outline, and it's almost the same shape. It's complete with a little circle in the top left there as well, and obviously the coloured bits are the deposits of the site itself. So I don't know what that line means, whether that's part of the lake or part of whatever. But it didn't give any interpretation. But it's a very similar shape to that stone.
Yeah. So the area of that's a really random one, Andy. But yeah, I see. I can see what you're saying. What does that little thing up in the corner mean? What
idea.
What does that mean?
No idea, unless it's an island or a what's it?
Yeah, there is an island in Lake. There is an island in Lake Flixton.
Yeah, there's 2.
It's not a man-made one, is it?
Yeah, I can see what Andy's saying. Yeah, there's just something. Yeah,
it's similar. It might be random, but I just thought that's the only picture I could actually find of the site. All the rest show a map of the area and where the site is, but not a map of the site itself. So
yeah.
So what I'm going to do now? We've done the Andy thing, so that's good. I managed to do that. So what I am going to do, we will take a little bit of a break. And it's I don't even know what time it is now. What time is it?
10 on for 9, I'll be going soon.
10 to 9.
What do you mean you'll be going soon, Rog?
Yeah, well, I'll be early tomorrow. Project we got it planned up at the archives.
Oh, Llandaff Cathedral Archives.
No, the Cardiff archive, the Morgan. So the follow-on archives of the doing research on the main street, on the Institute, National School, stuff that's there. But we haven't got it all online, so let's go and see the stuff.
Right, Rog. Right, don't go. Right, we'll have about a 5 or 6 minute break. So, Roger, that'll tie in with your leaving at 9. Okay.
Yes, thanks, Carl. Anyway, one point, like what point I've been studying this. That figure, pointing from the lower right, almost looks like a bird figure. The tail there maybe, and the lines going up, because those lines lower down seem to be at a slight angle to the main line, not the usual right angle you get on the oval. And I'm wondering, it's a bit like the Nazca figures, similar type of thing to that. Whether it's all one thing or it's been added to or written, who knows? But the stuff on the right-hand side is a sort of, almost could be the tail-like part, possibly a little bit round, with something other, which could then mean the lucky symbol would be referring to some sort of possibly dark sky or something like that.
Dragonfly.
So that's what I was looking at, and I thought there's something there, and I thought, I wonder, you know, it's a thing to look at and you interpret what you see. And to me, it's been something like that sort of thing. You know, the Nazca figures, which are much later, but the same sort of basic drawing and artwork with some sort of figures, nature, for some reason.
Right. Okay, folks, we're not having a break now, right? We're going to do this until Roger leaves, then we're going to have a break, right? Because there's 2 points that have been made there, which I do believe are very important. We've got to go back to our Google, right? And we've got to basically put a random one in about the Nazca lines, and there's something that I've spotted there's a point to it. So and please, everybody, if you just let me do my spiel on this, otherwise I'm going to lose my track.
Okay.
So, so obviously, that's like a load of different Nazca lines. That type of array where there's lines, and I can see what Roger's saying. That sort of Nazca line effect. However, what we did, there's something that I've just spotted. Can you remember the little man from Robin Hood's cave at Cheddar Gorge? And we had the art, didn't we? And I'm just trying to, there is something that really ties in with that.
Yeah, well
now,
remembered.
Yes, I wondered about the cave art, the line.
Right, no, what we're going to do, forget about the cave art a minute, right? Forget about it, right? This is, no, I'm not saying anybody's wrong, Andy or Margaret. We can talk about that in a sec, right? But you can see here that this horse, this image of a horse, which is a Paleolithic image, this dates back obviously about, was it 14,000 years ago, right? So this is, was it 3,000 years before? And the lines themselves are highly representative of their art. Agreed?
Yeah.
Which is on that pendant. Now, can you remember where there was a little man? And I'm just trying to find Robin Hood's cave, there was that little man, I've forgotten what his name. It's something about that is hitting me. Art. We're getting that one every time. Remember that little figure? There was a little figure, wasn't there, on a piece of antler? What was it? What was it called? Do you remember what I was talking about? Portable art. If we get rid of the cave, we might, and you might see what I'm seeing, and then you can bring in the Nazca stuff. Oh, great! We got Robin Bloody Hood.
Oh,
For
hooray.
God's sake! Right, hang on. Robin Hood cave. There it is again. It's the same one. There was a little. I can remember we spent a bit of time on it, and it was just on another piece of there was like a rib. There was like a rib, and there was a figure on it, right? And we couldn't really work out what the figure looked like. And unfortunately, I can't find it, but there was a little figure of a little man on a rib, right? And what we'll do to try and explain this, we'll try and use this. And what we did find was this, again, back to what I said, the representation of this art in refers to lines. Like when we did this, what we did, we used these lines of the horse as like, you know, it was a design of a Przewalski horse. But then we looked at the other lines as being some kind of a tally, right, which was superimposed on top of the horse, right? So if we go back to the image, you can if you bring in what Roger just said, and you bring in the idea of a tally, and you bring in the idea of then a map, this is something that could have been used for different things over different periods, but now the lines are superimposed. Yeah. And then what I would like to do to explain that is if we then go back, if we then go back to the cave art at Creswell. Hang on a minute. Hang on, it wasn't. Hang on, it
That was
wasn't
witches' marks at Creswell, wasn't it?
Yeah, I might be getting my locations wrong. The little figure, mate. The little figure didn't come from Cheddar at all, did he? He actually came from Creswell Crags.
Creswell Crags. Oh.
Right. Yes, that's right. No, I got this wrong. Yeah, the figure of the figure of the man came from Creswell Crags on a bit of antler, and also I'm sure it was Creswell Crags, and obviously because the horse itself came from Creswell Crags as well. This is Creswell Crags, and can you see that you've got these little marks on here again, right? Yeah. These little marks again. This is from around 14,000 years ago.
Group of five as well again. That one.
What's that,
You've
Andy?
got five fingers on a hand, haven't you?
Yeah, underneath that auroch were 5 vertical ones. Again,
and you
which
can see that
same
there.
as the other thing. Yeah.
This is not a good image, but what you can clearly see there is art in the past. They superimpose things onto a surface, right? Yeah. So what they probably did, they used some kind of a wash to hide the earlier image, and then re-incise over it, and then used another wash. But unfortunately, all that wash is gone, and everything's superimposed. So if you think of that with a pendant, that the earlier lines were then hidden by some kind of wash, right? And then that has gone, and all the lines that we see now are superimposed. This is typically what we see about Paleolithic art and maybe Mesolithic art, that they're using the same surfaces to continually carve into, right? And what I am going to finally do is just wait one final attempt at trying to find that image, because we weren't supposed to be talking about that today, but because we've gone into that direction, no, we're not going to find it. So somebody can find it. If somebody can find it as homework for next week. But
yeah.
So you're now off now, are you, Rog?
Yes, thanks very much. Fascinating. It was a totally new look at these things, and I thought, well, being so old, and I thought, well, they had a lot of things they could do, and whether that thing I've seen is past a figure and some ogre with it to give it a name, something. So it could be not just ogre.
Rog, what we're going to do, right? Just take us through your little journey before you go. Just do it.
What's that? Well, I've said my piece.
Just say it again with the image in front of you. Tell us what you're seeing.
Yeah. Well, that part on the right, with trying to describe the right-hand side, slightly at an angle to the line going across the left, upward slightly, and it makes me think it's not necessarily ogre, where the others were so definitely square on. And looking at that figure on the right again, with this sort of lines sort of disappearing off to the right could be a tail with the head going up the other way, upon which they've written could be Ogham on that top northwest corner, if you like. What's on the corner at the bottom southwest, I'm not quite sure what this is at the bottom here. It could have been added later or something overwritten on top of that. That's the thing you can ponder about forever, but that's what I'm not sure of, the southwest corner, if you like. But it just looks like that bird figure with the two wings on the right side, southeast, if you like, at a slight angle, and the reminiscent of the other stuff. The top northwest corner, as I said, is square on, looks a bit more like the Ogham, which could be an identity of whatever that, perhaps a god figure, something, which they could wear as a something lucky charm, St. Christopher's and all that.
And to be honest with you, if you go with what I've said, if you could cover this over, and then with some kind of ochre paste, and then you re-incise the lines to have another design.
I'd like to see what's on this left-hand side bottom corner here. Can't make that what that is. Yeah.
There's a lot going on in the left-hand side. There's a lot.
Very complex.
And it's worn on the right-hand side, but there may have been a lot on the right-hand side as well. It's just worn away.
Right. That is where there. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, yeah, this exactly. Shane, you're going to miss
if you're right-handed, you would pick it up with that bottom corner to hold it up and show people it.
Yeah,
and it's going to wear away.
Yeah.
Why would you work on the same stone over and over again? Why wouldn't you just get a fresh piece of stone?
Because it's a special stone.
So it's a special. So the stone itself is very meaningful.
It's got a lot of meaning. Actually, the other thing as well, I'm going to chuck this into the mix, right? Most of the archaeological evidence that we find at Starcar is organic. These types of shell stones themselves wouldn't be easily available because it's a boggy, marshy landscape, right? You'd have to root into the sediments of the lake to try and get stones like this, right? And they're not readily available. It's the gold theory again, right? Forget about the usual thing, Andy, right? When gold is very available in later periods, is because people are in upland areas, and the upland areas are being eroded away, and they're finding outcrops of gold and bits of gold in streams and all the rest of it. And then eventually gold becomes scarcer and scarcer because of the sediments in bottoms of river valleys, and all the sediments are lost, right? So certain times in history, there's certain things are available. And it certainly wasn't that there was lots of shale available at that time, because there isn't. There isn't much shale available in the archaeology except this object. So the shale object would be very special.
Do they know that it's from that area?
We do actually have that, something about that in my notes. So
they could analyze that, I suppose, couldn't they? Yeah.
So well, you basically lots of the shale is going to be sort of eroded in from the sort of various and dropped through glacial spread. But these are not readily available. You're not going to pick them up. You're not going to pick this up on the top of the peat, right? No. Because it's going to be below the peat, and that's the point.
Exactly.
There is quite a lot of shale in the cliffs around there, on the coastal cliffs. So.
But you've got to travel to get them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like the flip. Okay,
Take
Roger.
care, you all, and when I think about this one, this could take quite a long time to study.
Good to see you, Rog.
Bye, Roger.
Take care, everybody. All the best to Sandra. Let's hope.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
See you, Rog. It's been a pleasure. Take care, Rog. Right, everybody. I didn't think we were going to get this into this tonight. I had no idea. I thought I was going to be in trouble before the break. I thought we were going to run out, and I really want to do those two images, but I really want us to finish about 22 tonight. So we've got a little bit of a short break, but I do have to feed the animals quickly. So I'm going to be out and I'm going to be back. I will see you soon.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Peter. Just tried ringing Sandra, but her phone's busy.
Mm. Oh, it's getting dark.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's getting
no.
dark.
It is, it's getting dark. 9:15.
Nighttime, it usually does.
Oh,
It's only because it's clouded over and rainy. Otherwise, it'd be bright and sunny.
no, well,
Yes, it's raining as well, actually, out there.
And the water's running fast. Tide's going out.
is it?
Yeah.
Yes, you've got a good view there, haven't you?
Yeah. Surprises me sometimes how different the strength of the tide is, or the speed of it. Some days it seems to, not quite drift in and out. It always goes, but sometimes it's sort of really almost torrential.
Yeah.
Well, that's spring tides and neap tides, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's almost just river water that's running down it now.
Mm.
So, and
That's right. It's not that at the moment, but sometimes it's too.
It was running quite quick the other day when I was quite surprised after that rain we'd had.
What kind of fishes come into the estuary?
Lots.
Yeah, but do we get? We won't get like sea bass, will we?
Yes, we get a lot of
we
sea
get
bass.
sea bass?
Yeah, we didn't used to, but we do now. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, they come in for the fry.
Yeah. And you sometimes see them just as the tide's coming up. You'll see the water suddenly boil. That's the fry. But we get mullet, there's what grey mullet as well, and obviously the fluke or flounders, flatfish.
I wonder why they described that weird haircut a mullet. Do you remember that weird haircut from a few years ago?
Yeah.
It looks nothing like a mullet. I wonder why they gave it that name.
Well, the grey mullet is kind of that kind of shape. So
yeah. I noticed there's a sign in the hairdressers in Millthorpe that says any annoying unaccompanied children will be given a mullet.
Jolly good. And salmon and trout and eels.
Oh, I saw a jellyfish at Grange.
Yeah.
Washed
exactly.
up.
And what else do we get? And even herring as well, some herring.
Herring.
I had a herring yesterday. I haven't been able to get any herring for over 2 years. I was told by the fishmonger that it was all done on the boats and he couldn't get it. Anyway, I managed to get one. I had one yesterday.
Right.
I
enjoyed it. Yes.
They used to be so plentiful here.
That's right.
Yeah, like 100 years ago, not recently.
They were the cheapest fish. There was in Antwerp or somewhere that used to be sold on every corner. As I've read a book about it somewhere or other, a long time ago.
Yeah.
But certainly in my childhood, herrings was I used to hate them. They were every Friday because they're cheapest.
I don't think I've ever had a herring.
Oh, it's nice.
We have mackerel and pilchards.
Yeah, we're not clean enough water for them. We'll be out in the bay. I'm sure there'll be mackerel out there, but
I don't think we're clean enough for Cornwall, are we? Look at Cornwall. It says it's a pristine environment. It's perfect.
Yeah. Everything's full of mercury anyway.
So.
Well, everything's full of Venus as well.
Yeah, but I don't know if you've ever seen that documentary on fish, but virtually all the fish are polluted to some level or other now.
Oh, this is all the microscopic plastic we're checking in the sea
as well. Yeah.
And mercury,
not good.
The fish have got mercury in, I understand.
Yeah.
Especially bigger ones.
Yeah.
In fact, one is advised not to eat the very large fish that live a long time.
Yeah.
Because of that, you should eat the little ones.
Yeah.
So polluted.
We've got a jar of mercury up in the garage, if I remember right.
Right, let's get on with it. Shut up.
Karen, send you 2 links.
Yeah, I'm reading them now quickly. I'll just do an overview. Claire's just sent me this. Stone Age Britons may have had prehistoric secret code. This is what one set of headlines is saying. Mysterious markings engraved on an 11,000-year-old pendant, which we're doing, suggest that the area's ancient Mesolithic inhabitants used a system of long and short lines to represent events or objects in numerical form, which is, again, that sort of Morse code type thingamajig.
Yeah.
The markings appear to have been inscribed on the pendant in a deliberate, it says faint way. I disagree with that, because obviously over time they've worn, and the ones on top are not faint. And archaeologists suspect that may have been in order to render many of them almost invisible when not being examined closely. I don't agree with that either. Why would you? No, I'm sorry. And the other thing as well is, if there's so few people around, there's not going to be people going around saying, oh, there might be a guy over there with a pendant around his neck with a secret code, which we need to take to our chief decoder to stop Nazi Germany invading our country. I don't go with that. However,
That's not the one I believe in. It was the one on Messenger I believe to be true.
Right, okay. I thought that was the one. Anyway, the one about shamanic jewelry. Shamanic jewelry. This one. You sent me both. Anyway, there's that one. And here we go. Archaeological approach to shamanic artifacts, especially jewelry. Shamanism is a belief system similar to many modern day religions. During the 1950s, shamanism became a popular way to explain the secrets of obscure European ritual objects and practices, ancient myths or legends common in most hunter-gatherer societies. It said a certain writer, David Lewis Williams, is often credited with generating interest in shamanism amongst prehistorians following his studies of rock art in South Africa, associated with the Sand people. Rituals led him to conclude that prehistoric rock art was created from the visions of shamanisms in various states of trance induced by ritual dance, sensory deprivation, or the ingestion of hallucinogens. In the case of shamanic performance, shamans require props that would have included paraphernalia associated with status and rank of the shaman, such as body adornments, which include dress, jewelry, body paint, body scarring, tattooing. Almost some of these paraphernalia interchangeable. We have indications how their jewelry, amulets or shamanisms may look like. And one quick thing, I'm not going to do the whole thing, but what we are going to do is I'm going to show you an image from this piece. So here we go. A tiny 11,000-year-old pendant found at a famed prehistoric site in North Yorkshire. Scarborough is as we know, crafted from a single piece into a 3mm thick shale containing outlines of a tree, a map, or leaf or tally. The possibility that a pendant belonged to a shaman is likely because headdresses. Well, we've mentioned that, but what we would say is look at the detail of this when it's zoomed in on. Hang on. Can you see that there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look how detailed that is.
Yeah.
When you actually zoom in on it.
Mhm.
So yes. Anyway, thanks for that, Claire. So obviously,
You're welcome.
this being a useful addition to the last part of the lecture now. So so here we go. So what we need to do, always welcome bits. This has been very interactive today. I've got to be honest with you. I think Pete's gone to sleep now because he hasn't said anything for 4 hours.
Can't get a word in edgeways.
Well, it's all everyone else talking, Pete, today.
Oh.
Right, hang on a minute. What I want to do is I've got this here. Look at that. This tells you through resonance and microscopic analysis the different phases of when this stuff was carved, which we'll have a look at, but not yet. What I would like to do is, as I look at my other notes, right, this here shows you, this is like a GIF that's moving. You can see it moving on the screen. So it starts off, this is one interpretation, and I'm going to get my notes, and I'm going to read from my notes, and then we're going to go on to the last image. Right. So hang on, I think actually the one that I've got here, which is actually the Wikipedia entry, is a lot more clearer. So I think what I'm going to do is get the Wikipedia one. So if we do that there, and if we type, there's actually, you don't often get this, but there's actually a star car pendant Wikipedia page, which is great. So I'm going to, where is the little thing? Whenever you want, there we go. And there is the image. So if we bring that out, that's so much clearer, isn't it? So there we go.
It was hanging from a piece of cord from that, threaded through that hole. Which way would it be hanging? We'd be looking at the vertical lines horizontally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perhaps we're reading it all the wrong way round.
Yeah, that would make sense, because it would be sort of balanced at an angle, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, this so obviously we've got, it's saying it's uniquely engraved. We'll keep this on the screen as I'm reading, and then we'll go on to the last image. So uniquely engraved shale pendant, but obviously it's unique and rare because this is the only one we've found so far. Now, I think the clue is, if another one was found, do you know, last week I was trying to say about the Boulder Cliff site, and I said if you can get a square which is the same dimensions as the square that was excavated at Starcar, and read the two different layers and tried to compare the evidence. Well, if you found another one of these in Britain, I think it would be a moment that Champollion had sort of looked at the Rosetta Stone, and we're looking at a moment of illumination. So if another one of these is found, I think that will give you the answer to what this is. So obviously, the way people actually, and it would need to be a similar date, the way people decode things is to look at two similar things and to look at similarities on the one object to the other object. It would all have to be around the same time. But if you get another object like this, you've got to be aware of what we've discussed, i.e. the way that this is changed and altered over time, whether it was a map or whether, and then it was a representation of an animal, as we see in previous periods, right? And you can clearly see now in when this comes around, we'll right. Can you see there? If you spread more of these lines on the left-hand side, which is eroded away, that would clearly look like some significant an artistic representation of an animal, for example, and therefore we then see the use change. And the point I'm trying to make is that if we found another one, we could make those comparisons of how things change on the stone and what this can digest to us. So again, the reminder, this is found in 2015, found by York University, and it was actually found by a student from the University of Chepstow. And guess when it was found? On the last day of the excavation, as these things are usually found. Usually, can you remember watching Time Team, and the greatest things were usually found on the last hour of Time Team, and they only had like 2 minutes to tell us about it? It's the same thing. So again, give you some, again, keep looking at this. The pendant is sub-triangular in shape. So it's curved, but the edges are curved, but sub-triangular. It's 3 millimeters thick. We forget that. It's 35 millimeters from the top of the screen to the bottom, and 31 millimeters across. There's lots of techniques being used, including an energy dispersive X-ray fluorescence that was used to prove its provenance, i.e. it was made from a certain type of shale. The front face is engraved with a series of parallel lines, which we've already established, incised with lines which often cross each other. That's an easy way of putting it. It has a perforation made by drilling through from the engraved side at one of the lobes, one of the corners. Right, so again, on the reverse side to the engraving, there is a nick caused by a missing flake of shale in the central region. Can you remember that on the other side? There was a little bit missing. This may have happened accidentally or intentionally, presumably by somebody, something hard striking the surface before it was deposited in the lake. What we need to do, we need to look at that. We need to come back to this image in a moment, right? Because I think if we go back to the reverse side, which I wasn't going to do, I've only just spotted this now. So if we go, I wasn't expecting to look at this, but we need a reverse image. That there, that little nick on the back, we'll go with this again. This may have, the nick on the back may have been caused accidentally or more likely intentionally, presumably by something hard striking the surface before it was deposited in the lake. Maybe somebody wanted to destroy it. Now remember, that's a really important point. Remember, this is being damaged by something in a landscape that was predominantly wood, so it would not be accidental. Oh, by the way, we've knocked her against a piece of wood, nothing's happened. We've knocked her against somebody's head, nothing's happened. It would have needed to be intentionally struck. And they're saying that because that's a fresh, that's relatively fresh and it's not worn, right? That must have happened in the later days of when this was being used, or the last day, and when it was either lost or deliberately put. Maybe somebody struck it and it just flung up in the air and just was lost. Oh bugger! I haven't destroyed the thing. Right now, that's a really important point. Or it was intentionally struck.
Yeah, Carl, shale's very fragile. It shatters very easily, from what I remember of shale.
So give me another interpretation, Andy.
Well, no,
give me another.
I think that would make it more deliberate, as it's been carved that way, because if you hit it that hard, it would probably smash. So
Yeah.
Go further, Andy. Go.
Can't think why you'd want to make a hole in the back of it, though, unless they were trying to make another one, so you could put it on a string right through. There's a second hole.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So, but we will agree that was. I will say that that's intentional.
I would say it's accidental.
Go
on, Pete.
Go
I
on,
would say
Pete.
it's accidental.
Why? How?
Well, because it doesn't seem to serve any purpose, and there's no reason for it being there other than an accident.
Perhaps that was a failed first attempt.
No, but hang on, it would be worn down. There's no sign of wear on that edge. Yeah.
Well, the smooth edges were where it was being worn around somebody's neck. That has happened afterwards.
No, yeah, I know. No, we're talking about the little indentation in the back now.
Yeah, you can't rule out accident there without a doubt.
But give me an accidental cause, please.
But it could have been just laying on the ground and someone stood on it.
Sharp rock or something.
Yeah.
Okay. But there weren't many rocks around, so it would need to be completely.
Well, how do you know?
Because we haven't found many on the site, Pete.
Well, you haven't found many, or you haven't found any.
Well, lots of microliths have been found, or I can give you another interpretation. Maybe somebody was firing an arrow, and it happened to be that side, and it hit it.
Ooh. That's a whole other story.
If it hit it hard enough to make that indentation, I think it would have shattered.
Okay. Right. We'll go with that. We'll leave that one there now. Oh, this is no. Don't apologize. This is deep. This is deep stuff, man. This is all so deep. So I want to finish this today. So I got that last image to look at. So the pendant is unique and the earliest example of Mesolithic art. That reminder, whilst it is very similar to others found at European sites, it's the first to be found made in shale. The others are made in amber.
Could be a
It is
stock
also.
record.
We'll say that again.
A stock record of things, either things which happened or things which they had.
And another way of reading a record, Pete, we've got a way of we've okay, Pete, right? 1 minute we're using the old tally system, and the next minute we're using beads, and the next minute we're writing things down in numbers, right? So there's there are different ways of recording things in the past.
Yeah.
2 little lines to me is abhorrent. It should be a number 2, right? But people recorded things in beads, right? So there's different ways of recording things, and you're right. So it is also one of the few decorated pendants that have been found within an archaeological context and not a stray find. It's found within the archaeology amongst all the other organic stuff and a few flints. Analysis by the research team suggests there are 2 phases of markings on the pendant, and that it's possible that more than one person added to it over time. So in other words, there's different impressions being made by different strengths, which will then look at the final image. Different interpretations from those who have seen the engravings have suggested everything from map, tree, leaf, tally, whatever. Even a representation of the wooden platform which had been. Did you read this, Andy?
Yes, I did.
Andy goes out to find a bloody plan, and he makes out that he's just found it, and therefore I've just read it in my last line. And then finally, don't worry if you have, Andy, it's a good lead. And then finally, what we then find is that one there, which isn't as clear as this. And this is the last image for today. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get this on my other device, and okay, we'll just. So basically, we can see that the green there, the sharp green is actually the hole. That is the first thing that was made on it, the hole, right? The hole there, the green, that was the first phase, the first stage, the first thing that was made, right? And then if I can, we can, some of the colors are actually slight obscure here. So
Choose the vertical lines by the hole, isn't it?
Yeah, those are the vertical lines by the hole. But I'm just gonna.
Is that animation sequence in order then?
Yeah, hang on. We're gonna go back with the animation sequence. Hang on a minute.
It kind of seems to be in that kind of order, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. So the vertical lines and then the notches on them.
Yeah.
Okay, and I've just realised I've just found the mistake I did with the last lecture, and I've made the same mistake again, Andy. Andy, have you spotted the same mistake I made this time around? Because this line here, this line going through the middle looked very fresh. I interpreted that in the last lecture and said that obviously that line through the middle looks very fresh, but that was the first line, one of the first lines made.
Yeah.
So that's not a later line at all. That's one of the earlier lines.
Yeah.
It looks as if it might be some kind of tallying thing, doesn't it?
So,
a counting thing.
But the big question is, why is the line in the middle so clear still, right? When it's the sharpest line, and lots more of the recent lines that look more faded. So if we go with the red ones, these red ones are little notches on these earlier lines. So these little red ones, those are some of the earliest notches.
Yeah.
It may just be that the person who did the first one was stronger.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, or used a different tool.
Yeah, had a
Yeah,
sharper
exactly.
bit of whatever he did it with.
Yeah.
Or she.
Yeah.
Number 2B, there you go at the screen. The number 2B is these lines here, the blue ones.
The blue ones, yeah.
Right. And then what we then have is the 3A over in the right hand side, these lines here. And you can see that there's a missing area here.
Yeah.
But that looks like it's deliberate. It looks deliberate because if you join the smaller lines at the bottom with the ones at the top, they're not running parallel as the ones above. So that is deliberately around something. That is clear. It's around something. It's almost as if there may have been a bit of color on there or something or whatever but those lines there on the left-hand side of the line, the central axis, don't run parallel with the ones on the other side when they go out of the break.
Or the other ones have been worn away.
Yeah, but Andy, if they have been worn away, Andy, right? What I'm trying to say, Andy, you know the 4 lines above, they run perfectly parallel. Yeah, they're the same space from
Yeah.
So if you look on the ones on the right, the sequence of the ones on the right run the same as the ones on above, but the sequence of the ones on the with the ones then on this side towards the edge are different.
Definitely.
Yeah, they are. So I'm going to go with.
Have you noticed
something
that those vertical ones go 1, 2, 3?
The
1, 2,
purple
3.
ones on the left.
Yeah, on the left, that kind of seem to run in a completely different direction because you've got that center line with the ones coming perpendicular off it. Then you've got those other ones that are a completely different angle, and the bottom one is 1, then the next one's 2, which are a greeny color, I think, aren't they? And then it's back to the purple again, which is 3.
It's almost like a perspective drawing, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yeah, but hang on a minute, right? So you've got the 3 there, and you got go further on
2
down
and
towards
1.
the left. You've got another one. You've got another third one. Yeah, that's right. A fourth one. One, the purple, right? Because before the purple, you've got these sort of cyan marks, haven't you?
Yeah.
The 3B2.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got the problem is the working out where the 4. Oh no, no, yeah, hang on a minute. No, we missed out the 3B1. Those are those ones, and the 4A. Those are those ones. Yeah.
Yes, 4A and 4B, isn't it? And guessing they must be fairly similar time-wise.
Yeah.
And then you've got these lines here, which are much later. The five ones. And you notice that, interesting enough, with the 5 is that there's a long line, and then there's another line that should be running parallel, but there is a break before it starts again, because that's not running. That's started again.
Yeah, breaks are difficult. It's like that break on the other side that looks like it's round something, which it could be.
Does it correspond with the hole on the other side? Does it?
No, but because that's on the other side. But that could also be, just aware. It could have been slightly fainter, when it was done, and it's just worn. So it's always difficult to interpret,
though, doesn't it?
It does look deliberate, yeah.
Yeah.
But there is something else coming out which I will cap off with, right? So obviously the ones 4B look like we don't really understand what's going on, right? And then what we've got a weird then we've got something weird going on. This is what we're going to finish with, right? Can you see what I'm saying? The black lines here are created before the blue lines, the blue parallel lines. Can you see that there? That's a strange one, because the black lines are created before the blue, the light blue. And then you've got these added
say
there.
that? Because 4C2 comes after 4C. Because you've got 4C1 and 4C2. I would have said that was the chronology. So that would mean that the blue ones were there. Blue blue ones were there first.
Isn't there a blue further down?
No, hang on. Stop a minute. 4C2. The black ones are there. Then 4C's placed on.
Wow.
The 4C's placed.
Yeah.
You see that, Andy?
No, I don't agree. I think 4C is the first ones, and then you've got 4C1 and 4C2 because they have to come off that anyway.
So you're saying that we've got a mistake made with so the blue one should actually be 4C2, and then the black.
No. I think you've got 4C because you've got whatever and then any addition to that would be 1, 2, 3 or A, B, C. So after that, so 4C is the first one. The
last.
The order in which they're listed is not I don't think is the order they're meant to be in. I would go by the numbers as being the order that they are in, and therefore 4C is first.
Margaret, I see what he's saying. Basically, somebody's balls up the number in there, so the 4C.
Well, 4C.
Right, yeah, Andy, I'm sorry. Yeah, Margaret. Yeah,
it's the right. Underscore, isn't it? It's the underline.
Yeah. He's right. So somebody should have put the 4C directly above 4B.
Exactly. I don't know why they've put them there. It's very misleading.
They've got it the wrong way round.
Yeah, sorry. So what I'm going to say to end with today, and we will start off with this next week, right? This has been a lot longer than I thought. We've done well over 2 hours now. What I'm going to say is this, right? That we've done a good stab of that. I've got a couple of things wrong in that, and we managed to bring it back. What I'm going to say is this: it's almost as if it's 1 minute used to have these long lines, then these little lines have been added. Then at some stage they've just gone to doing the long lines, and then they've gone down to doing the little tally thing again. So that it looks like there's 2 levels of art there, or 2 levels of working using 2 separate codes. Can you see what I'm saying? Yeah.
Interesting that the one that looks most like the Ogram is actually one of the earliest.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's like yeah. 2B.
Yeah.
2B.
Yeah. To be or not to be, yeah.
Shut up, you. And actually, interestingly enough, right? Interesting enough, if you want to go, yeah, that does look like Ogham. Yeah. The evolution of Ogham.
Yeah.
So do you know what? Right, I am worn out because I wasn't expecting. Do you know what? That was not supposed to be the full lecture today. That was supposed to be half of it, but we've done it. So, so what we are going to do, we're going to bring this image back next week, just this image, and we're going to see what you think again with fresh eyes, and that's what we're going to do. So what I want us to do now is I want us to I don't make the mistake I made when I was in work on the week on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Right, I was in Newquay, right, and I went into a restaurant, and I said to the staff in the restaurant, "Are you winning the war?" Right, and the 2 chefs turned around and said to me, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Yeah, are you winning the war?" And there was a Ukrainian woman standing alongside them.
Yeah. I saw that coming.
And what was even worse, right? What was even worse, when the Ukrainian woman went out, I said, "Oh, guys, come on. Are you winning the war?" And standing behind me was another Ukrainian woman.
Oh.
And on that note, they said, "I think you need to go." Right. Okay. Okay. So that was really in depth, right? So, Claire, anything you want to say?
I honestly think it's a talisman more than a pendant. A talisman that can be worn, and the lines are significant
to the bearer, and maybe if you want to go down that avenue, it's worn by more than one person at different times.
Yeah, that's why I think the art on the stone is totally different. It's done by more than one person.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, and to have different meanings as well. And it's like, okay, I've come across a number of women in my life who you say, "Oh, you're still wearing your engagement ring," or "Yeah, but I don't love my husband. I don't love the man I was with. I'm using the engagement ring now as a memory of a special time, not the person." Even in that, it's turned around that the ring itself has meant something different, to the same person. But again, then what you then do is, for example, I carry my nan's wedding ring around with me, right? But it's my nan's wedding ring, right? I carry my nan's wedding ring around with me to remind myself of my granddad and my grandmother. I'm not married to my grandmother, am I? So there's two different ways of remembering stuff, and that's two different meanings. So yeah, good one. Good one with that, Claire. Thank you very much.
If you belong to a shaman, those lines are significant because, like, the other guy said about the Navarro lines, I automatically thought of those straight away. And it's like I've got a Cornish stone, and it's there's a Celtic cross on it. And to me, it's significant because not only is it a Cornish stone, it's a Celtic cross on it.
Yeah. So, and also different that's even more different meanings for different things and different. Okay, with one thing that we haven't mentioned, right? Maybe two things are going on with the stone at the same time.
Yes.
So it's like a mini computer, right? And Andy uses his computer for work, but he also spends hours watching YouTube videos. See, it was supposed to be Andy. It was supposed to be used for work, not YouTube.
It's all pleasure, mate.
But no, it's not.
Anyway, pleasure principle.
The point is what that's exactly, that's another way, isn't it? So right, so okay, Andy, anything, well, if Claire's done, anything you'd like to say?
I did come across some other research onto it that was suggesting it was some sort of measuring thing for celestial bodies, centering the hole on the pole star, but I'm not convinced by that. But I think the one thing that is really clear is it is really important, and it has it's been scientifically shown to have been developed as it's gone along, so it has been important to many people, as maybe, as Claire says, as so shamanic device or a marker. I would be surprised if you needed a counting thing that was that important.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't, would you?
So it does tend to go down that horrible ritual bit, but yeah, it's a really intriguing, and it's so close to the Ogham in places that
it really is.
It's like 1,000 years earlier.
I'm going to look at my Ogham thing that explains what it all means and see if I can make a word out of it.
Yeah, sorry, 10,000 years earlier.
Andy, I was just about to correct you there. Sorry, Andy.
Got me digital point in the wrong place.
8,500 years earlier, Andy.
Yeah. So it's there's a questionable development there, but yeah. But no reason why not,
No, no, it had to start somewhere, didn't it?
Can I just make the comment? We presume that they didn't need their language. Well, I'm sorry. I use some bad language. Bollocks. What do we know?
Totally.
They must
have had to be communication.
Yes, as some way of recording. Yeah.
They must have had.
Well, hang on. Not must have had. Why not?
Yeah,
why not?
Absolutely, why not? Yeah, totally agree.
So give me any reason why they can't. Exactly. Margaret, anything you'd like to say, darling?
Well, just as I was saying, I think it must be something very personal. If it was just a tallying thing, they would have just notched things on trees or on rocks. Yeah. So it was obviously very precious to somebody, maybe an heirloom passed down from
that's a good point.
One member to another.
It's meant to be permanent, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not just randomly now. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. Do you know what? Right. We say that we've recorded and written down more things in the past 2 years than in the whole in world history, right? But most of the stuff that we're recording now on computer generated stuff will not be available in 100 years' time.
No.
So, are we really that advanced? The answer is no.
No.
This stuff that is still with us, right, is, I've got, I've got a photograph of two of my children, right, and any photographs that I may have taken on a computer device back then, I don't have anymore, but I have this computer. I've got this.
Exactly.
This is there,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
there. So
Yeah.
So okay. So finally, who else have we got left? Anne, anything?
I find it, what can I say? I just find it amazing. This thing was very important, and it obviously those marks had meaning. And almost, I can't get it out of my mind that in putting meaning down, it was kind of very early writing. It was very early trying to communicate to someone else through marks.
And I think,
to me, I don't know, but
So the marks have a meaning.
Oh, definitely.
because they have meaning. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that meaning is because you can then give
Information.
meaning to someone else, which is like writing, like very, very, you can't imagine that writing would happen that long ago, but that keeps coming to me. It's like writing.
I think it had to have done. Yeah.
Can I just say, does it need to be communication? Or could it just be a personal note for somebody to remember? Right, it's like what we used to do in schools, right? Well, children used to do like little code things so nobody could read, so it only meant something to one person, or it meant something to two people, right? But the resonance of this is that it broadcasts something massively important. It's, in other words, right, one day some silly bugger on another planet will pick up that probe that we sent out there with all that data, and some of that stuff will mean they won't be able to understand most of it, right? But there's a record, isn't there? And they'll be able to play. Yeah, they'll be able to play that record, and maybe this is a record that could be played. Yeah, just because we associate a record needing to spin around, right, with a stylus, right? I've talked about this before, and you could actually have something a certain resonance that could actually play those lines. And can you remember those little those little box things that you turn, and there'd be these little lines on it? It would like read the thing that went around, right? Yeah. Now you could possibly do that with this, and there's so much that you can say. Whatever form of communication this is, it is communicating something. It's not random. It's not random because it's been used over a long period of time. Who does random things that are random like this? No.
It also had to be of universal understanding as well, to be able to add to it each time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I just chucked something else in the mix there, but it all this tells that something is happening. There's an event, there's a time sign, there's a moment of transmission, and this is what we're talking about.
And there's that kind of precognition of thought of transferring information and passing it on to future generations.
Yeah.
So there's history as well.
Yeah.
Can I just say one thing that's just occurred in my mind? We've got the concept that there's people out there in space, right? What if these people had a concept that somebody from a future generation, thousands and thousands of years into the future, may pick this up and use it as a way of interpreting their lives? Because believe me, these people were aware that people existed thousands of years before them, right? They would have also been aware that there will be people around in thousands of years' time. Maybe it's their time capsule, and that's why it was laid there for us to read it in a future generation. And that's exactly what we're doing.
Somebody said if they found bodies from now, if there was no written information at all, and they found quite a few skeletons with plastic pieces, with metal pieces, knees and hips, they might assume that we worshipped plastic and metal.
I've got two metal knees.
So have I. I've got two metal knees.
That's why they call him metal.
Everywhere.
Metal bloody Mickey.
Yeah.
So the other thing as well is that's the final thing I'll end it with, is that maybe this is because they knew,
Yeah.
and that's why it's there. That we always think that they did things in the now and the current, right? Yeah, they did, but we do things in the now and the current, but we also do things for future generations, and would like to think that they're telling us something, and everything that we excavate, they are telling us something. So on that note, if anyone wants to say anything, Anne, Margaret, Peter, Andy, or Claire, say it now this minute.
That's a concept of time.
Yes. Yeah, would they have had that concept of
Well,
time?
yeah, they had to have done, because they're putting
They
it
had
down
to
for
have done.
future
We're
generations.
the only creatures that do, aren't we, really?
Yeah, but they did have
Oh,
a
I don't
concept
know.
of time. They knew that
Yeah.
there was winter. They knew that there was summer.
Yeah.
They knew that the sun would rise, and they knew that the sun would go down. They knew that the
Yeah.
moon would come up, and they knew that the moon would come down. They knew that there would be rain at one time of the year. There would be snow at the time of the year. Of course, they had a concept of time.
They knew that they would die at some point.
Yeah.
Didn't they?
Yes, yes.
Mm.
And they knew that they were born, so there is a
Yeah.
concept of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's the paranormal use of pendulums through the ages.
And
That's
what
Right.
do you know what I'm looking forward to is a second edition of Buttons Through the Ages with Detectress, which is coming out with a
Oh,
special.
fantastic.
It's only a special. It's an hour and a half series, hour and a half episode. But again, Ringfuls Through the Ages, and we need to have that book. But no, but back to the serious point. This object is so important, and it tells us everything that we need to know.
Isn't it astonishing that one item can tell you? I mean, you look at all those other things. We've got those masks, we've got bits of carved bone, we've got other. They don't tell as much as that one pendant.
No.
Tells so much.
And it's all. That's why those footprints were so important.
Yeah.
Those again, going back to the footprint. I said at the beginning, footprints, pendant, brilliant. These have a way of talking far greater than anything else.
Yeah.
Those footprints over at the Bendricks of the dinosaur footprints. There's a continuous row of them, which shows the size of the animal, but also shows the pace of the animal. The pace was unhurried. They weren't running from something. They were just wandering. And that's what the footprints tell us, that they weren't actually being attacked. They weren't actually being frightened. They were just wandering.
Yeah.
And so the footprints have a story to tell, as you say.
They do. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Exactly. Right, folks, it's 10:02. So we're gonna have to so anything else got anything that they want to say quick before we go?
No, thank you.
Nope.
Okay, so we're going to call it a day. Thanks for joining us, Claire. Hopefully you'll be here the next week. And Andy and Peter and Margaret and obviously Drina and Roger and David should be back next week.
Yep.
And maybe Sandra.
Yep.
Ooh, hope
We'll
so.
see. Yeah. If she can, we will. Yeah.
Lovely.
The beast of balls over, Sandra. That's what we'll call her.
Nice one.
So
thank you.
Okay, a nice one. So that was a good one. That just so we that's 2 hours and 35 minutes.
Who'd have thought?
On one little bit of stone.
I know, it's
with a few
unbelievable.
scratches.
With a
few
few
random
scratches.
With a few scratches, yeah.
Yeah.
There you
Fantastic.
And one final thing, right, Andy? When Claire moves from that house that she's living in, and we find a load of scratches on the door down in the basement, we can then work out how many married men ended their days in that basement.
Oh, that's
Zero.
good.
Zero.
Bye. Bye, Claire.
Bye, Claire.
Bye.
Exactly. So Claire, Andy, Peter, Margaret, and we will see you all next week. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Cheers, lovely. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
No.
Bye.
No. Night, Pete. See you soon. Anyway, that was a really, really long one. I'm going to just see if there's anything in the chat box that we haven't seen. There's nothing in the chat box. Nobody is using the chat box. No, nobody. My God, nobody's using the chat box. Oh my God. I know. There's probably people watching this out there, and they're very critical of what I do, and they think that I use Google, and that I got a fake archaeological qualification from the University of Highlands and Islands and Leicester University and all the rest of it. That was a really good lecture. That was really meaningful. And people can be very jealous of an archaeologist like myself with some beautiful students that love doing what we're doing, and it's well worth the £50 that they pay every 2 months. Thank you very much. Have a great day.